After a night of partying, Daniele wakes up in a psychiatric hospital, not remembering how he arrived there. A doctor tells him he's confined to the hospital for a week of involuntary psychiatric treatment. Daniele meets his roommates, Gianluca, a flamboyant gay man with bipolar disorder, Mario, a kind-hearted retired elementary school teacher, Alessandro, who remains in a vegetative state and is frequently visited by his father, and Madonnina, a non-verbal man of whom nothing is known. He calls his parents, but they ignore him. His brother visits and threatens to hurt him if he hurts their parents ever again, but Daniele insists he doesn't remember what happened. As Daniele attempts to escape in the middle of the night, he sees a young woman being wheeled into the hospital on a stretcher. He recognizes her as Nina, a famous actress who he went to high school with. The men get a new roommate, Giorgio, who is sedated and being committed for the fourth time. Giorgio wakes up from his sedation and startles Daniele, but it is soon revealed that Giorgio is a gentle giant. A doctor prescribes Daniele SSRIs and recommends him to take up writing. Daniele wanders into the women's ward and sees Nina. He calls her over and asks if she remembers him from high school, but she irritably claims that her name isn't Nina and she didn't attend his high school. Daniele's mother finally calls and tells him that he hurt his father and berated them both during his psychotic break, which makes Daniele cry. He lashes out at his roommates after Giorgio tells a story about his mother who passed away in his childhood. Later, Daniele catches Nina trying to escape out of a window, much to her annoyance. That night, Daniele begins to bond with Mario. Daniele apologizes to his roommates for his outburst the previous night. He asks a nurse why Mario is in the facility, and the nurse tells him that Mario was tried for attempted murder of his wife and daughter. Daniele tells Mario that he knows about his attempted murder charges. Mario tells him that his depression forced him to retire, and that he couldn't cope with not being able to provide for his family. Daniele's father visits him in the hospital. It's revealed that Daniele's parents could only afford to send one of their children to university, so they chose Daniele, believing him to be the most sensible. Daniele, however, dropped out during his first year. He tells his father that he'll consider re-enrolling. Nina receives a visit from an older man, Ludovico, who had been cheating on his wife with her. Nina finds Daniele and tells him that she remembers him as a loser in high school. She threatens to hurt him if he tells any of their schoolmates about her admission to the facility. Gianluca's father, a stoic general, visits the hospital to give Gianluca clean clothes. Gianluca's father is dismissive and visibly irritated by his son's presence, while the typically energetic Gianluca turns meek and timid at the sight of his father. While wandering around the women's ward, Daniele sees Nina's mother and tells her that he knows Nina from high school. Nina's mother chides Daniele, telling him that Nina has a career and a future and doesn't belong in the facility among the lost causes, Daniele included. Privately, Nina's mother tells Nina to reconcile with Ludovico, as she wouldn't have a career without him. Nina chastises her mother for controlling her life and tells her that she can't go forward with her career. Madonnina, who stole a lighter from a nurse, sneaks out of the room and sets a storeroom on fire. After the fire is contained, the staff takes the residents to a park for fresh air. Nina and Daniele grow closer at the park, and she kisses him after they take a walk together. The roommates tell Madonnina that they're not angry about the fire, and they bond before bed. Daniele asks Mario for some sleeping pills to give the on-duty nurse so he can sneak out and watch fireworks with Nina, and Mario obliges. Mario tells Daniele that he craves tidiness in order to maintain some constancy in his life after the incident with his family. He tells Daniele that the only certainty in his life is a bird that sits in a nest outside his window. After giving the nurse a cup of tea with crushed-up sleeping pills mixed in, Daniele sneaks out and goes up to the roof of the hospital with Nina. They become intimate as the fireworks start. Mario tells the roommates that Daniele snuck out with Nina, and Gianluca wakes up the nurse out of jealousy. The nurse finds them and drags Daniele back to his room, telling him that he will be punished with another week in the hospital. Nina, meanwhile, manages to escape the hospital and run away. She makes her way to the beach, strips naked, and walks into the water. Nina returns to the hospital as morning breaks. A doctor harshly reprimands Daniele, telling him that his punishment is another week of involuntary commitment. Gianluca is sad because it is his last day in the hospital, and the hospital is the only place where everyone accepts him for who he is. He later convinces the staff to let him stay another day, much to his elation. The bird returns and Mario sits on the windowsill to feed it, but he accidentally falls out of the window. The roommates are devastated by this. Daniele goes to Nina, who tells him that she had escaped the previous night. Daniele is furious. He was reprimanded and punished because the staff thought he helped Nina escape. To make matters worse, Nina doesn't have to stay the extra week because of her connections. A doctor tells the roommates that Mario is being hospitalized for his injuries. Giorgio asks the doctor if the roommates can see Mario, but when the doctor refuses, Giorgio has a violent outburst. He fights several nurses, all while having flashbacks to being unable to see his dying mother when he was a child. Gianluca, feeling guilty, tells Daniele that he was the one who woke up the nurse, but Daniele forgives him. Gianluca says goodbye to his roommates. As he leaves with his father, Daniele chases after them. He tells Gianluca's father that Gianluca is an amazing person who kept everyone's spirits high. Before they leave, Daniele kisses Gianluca passionately, much to the annoyance of Gianluca's father. A doctor tells Daniele that Mario didn't make it and passed away that morning. Daniele is devastated and asks about Giorgio, who the doctor says has been hospitalized at a prison in Velletri. The staff have decided to discharge Daniele as they don't believe he deserves the extra week of punishment. He goes to say goodbye to Nina. She asks why he doesn't seem to be happy, and he tells her that Mario died. They reconcile and Daniele gives her his phone number. Before Daniele leaves, a nurse gives him a book of Arthur Rimbaud poetry that Mario had asked her to buy for Daniele. Daniele's mother picks him up from the hospital. Nina watches from the window and cries as they drive off. Daniele goes out to lunch with his family as Nina angrily texts him about not responding to her. He tells her that he'll be at Mario's funeral that day if she wants to meet up. At the funeral, which is attended by Gianluca, Nina, and the hospital staff, Daniele tearfully reads a poem dedicated to Mario. After the funeral, Daniele asks Gianluca to hang out later. They go to a nightclub and see Nina. She tells him that she ran out of coke and asks if he has any extra. He takes her to a bathroom stall and berates her for her drug use. They get into a heated argument while a group of girls in the bathroom record the fight. Daniele angrily returns home and receives a text from Nina to go to her Instagram profile where she posted a video admitting to her followers that she attempted suicide and was involuntarily committed. Sometime later, Daniele and Nina are at a pool together about to conquer their fears and jump off the high dive. Nina reveals that she might be pregnant from the night they were intimate at the hospital. They hold hands at the top of the high dive, looking uneasy.